Alright, what we've got today is a Nissan Versa. We are going to replace left and right lower control arms. This customer, I think he went to have this vehicle aligned or tires rotated or something, and they told him it was bad, so then I've got it to replace. I jacked it up, and check this out. Don't know if you can really see that on camera, but that is probably close to ½ inch slack. Other side's about the same way. So I've already got it jacked up and supported with jack stands. So I'll go ahead and take the tires off and stuff and get in there and show you what to do. Alright, I got the wheels off of this thing, and let me try to hold the camera here and see. Can you see that? That is a crazy amount of slack. So I think this side looks pretty forward. I think on these Nissan Versas, the passenger side isn't that bad. It's pretty straightforward. But from what I've seen and heard, the driver's side is a lot more complicated, and a lot more stuff has to be moved to get one of the control arm bolts out. So, but we'll see how bad it is. See if I can do anything and give y'all any tips or tricks, and see if we can get this out of here. I'll do a little bit at a time and film my progress, tell you what I've done, because I don't. Alright, back to this. This side is pretty straightforward and simple. On the rear of the lower control arm, of course, you can see, where it connects there. So, like I say, that's straightforward. It's an 18mm head bolt. Straight up in there, real simple. Of course, right in here, just have a bolt going through there, holding the upper part of, or the front part of the lower control arm on. That's real simple. A little trick that might help you, though, is when removing the ball joint from the bottom. I've got the car jacked up and supported with a jack stand. But on the lower control arm, a lot of people have trouble getting the control arm out of the, or the ball joint out of the spindle. So let me see if I can show you what I usually do. I may have to try to put some more light on here so y'all can see it. Let me do that. Alright, so on the bottom, there's a pinch bolt. Just a bolt that goes this way and a nut. Of course, you take the nut off of this side. Sometimes these bolts like to get stuck in there, and your first instinct is going to want to be to, take a hammer or something like that and try to knock it out. Then you risk damaging the threads. But actually, if you go on the back side and put a socket back here and turn this bolt several times to free it up, and then take a punch or anything just that's a little bit smaller diameter than the bolt itself, and peck it with a hammer, it'll usually come right out. Now to the ball joint. So what I usually do is take a chisel, and in that slit right there, just try to take a chisel and hammer it in there so it'll spread out and release around the ball joint itself. Sometimes on some of these that are stuck really bad, I'll drive a chisel in there to try to separate it, and then spray some kind of penetrating oil like a PB blast strip in here and let it set. But after you get the bolt out, and all that stuff, drive your chisel in. What I like to do is put a jack right here, and on this one the brake caliper, or the brake rotor, is held on by that nut, so it's very solid. So I like to put a jack under there, put a little bit of pressure on there, not a whole lot. Keep in mind the car is already jacked up and supported by a jack stand. Don't let the jack hold the whole weight of the car just by this. But put a little bit of pressure on it, and if you come right in here with a hammer on the lower control arm, since we're going to be replacing this control arm anyways, there's no risk of damaging it. So I've got a about a 2-pound sledgehammer that fits in here pretty good. But yeah, what I like to do is, since this control arm is going to be replaced anyway, so there's no risk of damaging it, you know, with a little bit of weight on this brake rotor to hold this up, not a whole lot, nothing crazy, and to make sure your jack just barely catches it so it don't actually hold the bottom of the control arm itself. You can see there, because if you support it by the jack right here and you hit it, then it's not going to do anything. And then just take your hammer on the lower part of the control arm and hit it close to this as you can get it, and it usually just knocks it right out. I think it took about 2 or 3 swings on this one and it's already out. So yeah, that and this bolt right here and this control arm will be ready to drop out, and put a new one right back in place. We'll go from there. Alright, so after a little bit more work, I had jacked this up, you know, and told you guys to hit it, and I thought it separated, but actually this one was so worn out that I hit it, you know, 2 or 3 times with a small sledgehammer, and what I thought had turned loose, you know, was the ball joint coming out of the bottom of the spindle, but it was actually the ball joint separating completely. So this thing was really, really worn out, to the point of being, you know, pretty dangerous. But so if this does happen, which I've done so many on different cars, this is actually not the first time it's happened to me. So I went ahead and removed the lower control arm, which gives you plenty of access. So I went ahead and drove the punch in farther now that I can get a better swing on it with my hammer. And you can actually, I know you can't see it, but you might be able to hear it. So this is actually very loose now. So I'm going to put the camera down and just peck this out of here, and then we'll be ready to go back with a new one. Alright, so got the rest of this out. Wasn't too hard. Drove the chisel in there a little bit farther, put a pair of vice grips on this end and pecked down with it on a small hammer with that, and came right out. But look at this, it's it's crazy. Talk about worn out. So yeah, it was really shot. Alright, so here's the new lower control arm. You know, even though the just the ball joint was bad on this, I mean, he had a little bit of wear on the other parts, the bushings and stuff there, but it's crazy because anymore if you go to the parts store and get a ball joint, it's not a whole lot cheaper than just getting a whole assembly. And so, you know, for just a little bit more, you can get the whole thing. That way, you've got new bushings, you got a new ball joint, and you don't have to worry about you know, fighting the old one out and putting the new one back in, pressing, and or if you don't have a press, you know, beating it in and all that stuff. So alright, so I got the new lower control arm back in on this side. I'm all the bolts in, torqued down. This side was pretty simple, not a whole lot to it, you know, pretty easy. You know, other than what I showed you, not a whole lot of tricks or hidden surprises that you have to watch out for. I got a feeling that the other side's going to be a lot worse, so we will put the tire back on this side and see about the other side. Alright, evidently the hard to remove lower control arm on the driver's side is only on certain year models. Luckily and unluckily, I have the one that is actually a little easier than the passenger side. I think the issue was with the other one is this bolt over here won't clear the transmission or transaxle on some year models. This one has plenty of room though on both sides, so I'm not going to bother with doing a whole video on it because it's going to be exactly like the other side as far as removal and installation. So you know, so yeah. But other than that, this side's back together. You can see that it is completely taken all the slack out of it and fixed the problem. So I'll be posting more videos, and comment, like, subscribe, tell me what you think, and we'll see what we get into next. Thanks for watching.